So welcome back to the technical features and functionalities track. I named this track, and I'm pretty sure that's what it is, but I may have botched it, but it's a technical track, right? Where we're looking at some of the technical features around FIDO specs and deployment, and how to streamline them, how to think about them. So this particular session that we're getting into right now is around device-bound passkeys, which we know are the gold standard for security. We know folks want to move to them very quickly. There's a life cycle to these keys, well, security keys, there's a life cycle to that. So the enrollment of folks and the recovery when you're dealing with device-bound passkeys is something that folks ask about a lot. And luckily, we have two people here to talk to you about that. So please help me welcome Joe and Manu to talk about pre-registering the credential, but to ease some of these challenges that I just talked about. Please, welcome.
Good afternoon now, after 2 minutes, and hello. So Joe, Manu, if you hadn't guessed, we're going to try to go through this relatively quickly because I'm in the enviable position standing between you and lunch. And lunch is right outside the door, so we definitely don't want to stay here too long for your sake. So, yes, push hard. No, not changing. There we go. All right, so quick agenda. The concept of creating phishing-resistant users. That really is the goal that we're all going toward. Phishing-resistant authentication sounds great, but we really need to look at it as a full life cycle. We're going to talk about a brand new announcement, FIDO pre-reg. Then we're going to talk about Okta security culture and how they've actually partnered with us and released throughout their enterprise. We're going to potentially have a video, but we know how videos sometimes work. And then we're going to have some Q&A. So let's get right into it. Why is this an issue? I think we all know at this point. Hackers nowadays and our adversaries just log in. They don't really have to do a whole lot of work. One quick phishing email, and they're in. So how often does this type of stuff happen? 68% of the breaches are caused by somebody clicking a piece, clicking a link in an email, and letting somebody in. Don't take my word for it. It's from the Verizon breach report. Blame them if you don't like the statistic. So when does this happen? When do our users typically fall out of phishing resistance? Onboarding, this is a big problem. You start a user day one, most of our organizations, you get a password, you get a tap code, you get sometimes not even that, just a username, because I've seen that one, and then they ask you to log in, and then they use many different ways to bootstrap you to get phishing resistant authentication at that point. Device registration, you handed them a cell phone. How are you registering that into your system? Are you using a phishing resistant method? A lot of times we're just using a username and password. Account recovery. Anybody had somebody call a help desk that wasn't actually that user? I won't ask for hands for your sake, but we know this happens. We really need to find a way to secure every user where they live, where they work, for every authentication task in every way. We want people to be able to easily register all new devices, really without the need for a call to the help desk in a phishing-resistant manner. Also, as we learned with a small incident a couple years back with everybody moving from home, we need to have good phishing-resistant methods for people to work remotely. Remember, phishing-resistant users ultimately create that phishing-resistant enterprise that we all want. Phishing-resistant authentication is really only effective when that authentication moves with the user where they are and on their terms. I would venture a guess that we've all been in situations where that authentication method doesn't work for you. Where you go into a room or a scenario where you might not be able to bring that cell phone. Or you might leave a smart card sitting at home. Or happen to forget your 38-character password. We also wanted to be able to move across all platforms. A handful of our users do stick to one computer. Most people have a computer, a cell phone, a tablet, a PC, a MacBook, their home computer. We've really moved to this app-driven world, regardless of the platforms we're on. Really taking that across devices, like I mentioned, wherever we can, and across every business scenario. So how do we do that? With the YubiKey, this is one of the only ways that I'm aware of that we can really remove phishing from the enterprise. Doing phishing-resistant registration, phishing-resistant authentication, and doing phishing-resistant account recovery at the user, with the user. This is where FIDO pre-reg comes in. This is our big announcement of today with our friends at Okta. Really is a game changer for all these methods, for phishing-resistant registration, authentication, and account recovery. So, how? Obviously today, it is available everywhere you need. What is it? Highest assurance password list made simple. Out-of-the-box FIDO authentication for enterprise users from day one. We will pre-register that FIDO credential at the factory, ship it directly to your end user, or ship it directly to an office of your choice. We will handle the painful things that none of us want to do. Very quick and easy way to start. Very easy way to ramp up a deployment of phishing-resistant authentication. And really, it reduces that workload for your IT infrastructure. You don't need to add FTEs to move to a phishing-resistant authentication. Let's get into the details. Now comes the fun eye chart that everybody loves to see in slides. Actually, that's not bad for a bigger screen. So how does this start? Your admin prepares to deploy the keys using Yubico FIDO pre-reg powered by Okta. They start the request with an automation trigger, which initiates Okta workflows behind the scenes. That automation can be synced into your HR platform through Okta workflows. And I know we're expanding every day, not only within Yubico, but also within Okta, different ways that we can make that as easy as possible. The key is then sent from Yubico Enterprise Fulfillment, pre-enrolled with the employee's Okta credentials. Later, the employee is provided a PIN separate from the shipped YubiKey. That way we never combine the two for security purposes. Your employee inserts their YubiKey, types their PIN, taps the device, they're in. Day one, phishing-resistant authentication. So that's great. How does it look to the user? Happy person, new job, yay. They get a PIN, yay. They get a nice FedEx package in the mail, that's their YubiKey. Logs into the company-provided laptop or even their own laptop. They go to the company login page, insert the YubiKey, type a PIN, phishing-resistant authentication, day one. But don't take just my word for it. Manu,
Hey,
what was your experience like?
it's awesome. And I'm going to explain about how Okta moved from wherever we were to a true phishing resistant enterprise. And let's talk more about that. So at Okta, this is the North Star. This is where we wanted to reach. Everybody wants to reach out there. We are no different. Everybody wants to have all the authentications that are happening in a phishing resistant manner. So we don't want any user to, for any period of time, to be like logging in with any weaker assurance factors, or use a weaker assurance factor to enroll into a higher assurance factor. So that's the kind of like problem which we are trying to solve. And for the phishing resistant recovery use cases as well, like if somebody loses their like device or like their laptop or something like that, now they want to recover. Like how do they do it right now? Either call, either send email, or whatever it's out there, right? So we are solving that problem with a phishing resistant recovery as well. And so we at Okta, we think that user friction might be one of the reasons, and kind of like admin overheads about like delivering this YubiKey and stuff like that would be like reasons for compromised security posture. We don't want that. We want like security posture to be like as best as it can be. And so we are kind of like making sure that we follow and we present the features to the customers which are the highest level of quality. And then for that, what we do is dog fooding. Basically, we use the same product, we use the same service in-house so that we get to know what is the quality for that product, how good it is. We take the feedback, come back and like iterate on the process and get back to the right thing. So that when it's generally available, it's like actually like it works. So these are the key gaps that we found, and probably you might also like understand that there is like there are problems out there, and these are the gaps which we are trying to figure out, like we are trying to solve. So when you put up recovery factor, you have to do a manual onboarding on that. Like you have to, like I personally bought a YubiKey some years back, and then I had to like put it in my laptop and then try to enroll it as a recovery factor and then keep it with me so that when later on, like if the laptop goes away or something like I spill coffee or whatever, then I can use that YubiKey to onboard myself without calling the admins in a phishing resistant manner. So that's the first problem. Second problem, if you look at from the admin's perspective, like if you don't have a mandate on this thing, like the policies cannot be created in a way that, okay, all my recovery will happen in a phishing resistant manner. There would be some backdoors that will be there in the policy, like as in like your password, your email, or some other thing will be there for you to like, and that's where the bad actors come into picture, and then they try to like figure out, okay, let me make a phone call and try to like pretend like, okay, Manu is there. Okay, I've lost this and kind of like, can you bootstrap me? And then all of those things happen. Like people do SIM swapping, and then they get into this whole thing. We don't want that to be like an experience or kind of like something that our employees, or probably you guys also don't want your employees to be like susceptible to such attacks. So we want like to make sure that thing is taken care of. There are logistical challenges in doing this. We always had an admin initiated enrollment for YubiKeys. We had it for years and years. Like admin plugs in a YubiKey, like enrolls it for a user and gives it. There are logistical challenges in. Like Okta is a global company. A lot of companies are global companies. So we want like all authentications to happen in that way. And that's where like we have partnered with Yubico, like because they are the leading like hardware security key providers, and YubiKey is kind of like the gold standard for like the security keys. So we partnered with them because we understand these challenges, and YubiKey and Yubico has a program where they will do all the like minting the YubiKey, putting the credential on it, then sending it out to the actual user. So all of that safe interaction is being done between Okta and Yubico via workflows. So that's kind of like the power of this whole thing, that admins don't need to like send out anything. They just need to use the program, provide the address, and then the YubiKeys will come to the right place. The other problem is that like if you don't have this Yubico pre-reg thing, there is no roaming authenticator across the board that you can say that, okay, for my employees, okay, I will say, okay, WebAuthn is or passkeys is kind of like one of the factors which I have for like recovery. But then what is the assurance that it is kind of like they've used a roaming authenticator? There's no assurance because passkeys kind of like can be on your Chrome or somewhere. Like for enterprise, it's a different security considerations out there. And the manual verification and recovery is a pretty cumbersome process, and we wanted to like eliminate that problem. Okay, now let's look at how we did it. And basically there is a phasing and rollout strategy that there's a disclaimer. This is very much specific to what Okta was experiencing, as in like we have a global presence, so we had to like, and we were trying to like figure out like how it would be done, and we are learning from the process. And so we did one region at a time. So initially we did it in the North America, then we did rollout in EMEA, and then we did at other places. And we first did it for full-time employees. We figured out, okay, there are gaps in this process. It's not so easy, like moving to a phishing-resistant enterprise is not so easy. So we figured out like step by step what's the right thing to do. And then finally we tried to monitor how the fulfillment speed is, how easy is it to get to the customers, how easy is it to, like, what are the pain points? We tried to figure out that, and then we got. Now, from February to July 2024, this was our rollout period, in which like we sent out the first YubiKey to the first cohort, and then finally we did it for the entire company. The emphasis, and this is what we learned, like communication and tooling is the real thing out here. Like you need to communicate to the employees. You don't want them to be locked out. You don't want them to know that, okay, something is happening on behalf of me, and all of a sudden this YubiKey arrives on their door and they don't even know what it is. So they need to know all the communication aspect around it. So that's the kind of like tooling that we built. And and we use the power of workflows. Okta Workflow is kind of like a tool where you can like plug and play, like wherever your organization is and what is their like onboarding strategy, you can plug in and you can tweak the workflows according to that one. Okay, so now let's look at some of the challenges that we faced. There are challenges around like traveling employees. Like you have employees out there which are kind of like, you might see, okay, I have all these addresses in my HRIS system. Okta is no different. Everybody has got some HRIS system where the addresses are stored. They might not be correct. And there are like problems when you have it at a global scale. Like in Asia, in Latin America, we found that address verification was a problem. Like, so we need to make sure that people know what address is there in the system, where the YubiKey will go, or if it's not like correct, they have an opportunity to correct it so that the YubiKey lands at the right place. So that's the kind of like thing that needs to be taken care of. And finally, like end user education, how it needs to be done, when you will get the YubiKey, what do you have to do to safeguard it, and finally, how do you use it as a recovery factor, and all those communication and education is the key part. Okay. So now let's talk about the solution. The solution is kind of like it's a Slack-based automation wherein we wanted to like make sure that all of these things are kind of like well tied up. The user has got the ability to like tweak the process and go forward. Okay. Finally, this is what we came up with. Zero admin overhead, basically the 100% deployment completed. All employees, 6,000 plus employees have a YubiKey as a recovery factor, which they can use for like all in the 42 countries. So this whole program is kind of like, before we give it out to the general public, we tried it on our employees and kind of like it works. And Okta is a true phishing resistant enterprise now. Yep, yeah. And I'll hand it over to Joe.
Thank you, Manu.
Thank you.
So think of it in 6 months, 42 countries, 6,000 keys delivered. So who can do this now? Any Okta customer with Okta's OIE. All YubiKeys form factors are available via YubiKey as a service. Your organization does not have to just be based in the United States. We're at 42 countries and growing pretty much weekly into what countries we can ship directly into. We can also work with your own logistics that you have built up internally to get keys in locations that we may not directly be able to get them there. If you're part of the UB Enterprise Delivery Program, we can ship to any of those countries and more, like I said. And we support, as of today, both new users and existing users. So we have a video that we're just going to skip because it's on the website, and I also want to get you guys to launch. So what are the key takeaways? Yubico's FIDO pre-reg really continues to fast track all of our organizations toward phishing-resistant users and enterprises. We have listened. We know what the pain points are out there, and we want to make it as easy as possible for every organization. If you have problems, talk to us. That's how we learn, and that's how we really develop solutions to help everybody's organizations. We also want to do it so it's not a huge financial burden to you. So we've taken the steps to make sure that we pick up really those pain points. Nobody wants to ship out tokens to their employees. Nobody wants to manage that. I didn't when that was my job. So we will handle that for you. We can do it as via subscription program, partnered with Okta, and we help you create and maintain phishing-resistant enterprises from day one. We're going to take a moment to go for questions. I think we have 1 minute or so, or I recommend getting a head start on lunch if you need to.
Can I?
Nope.
No, not off the hook, Joe. You got a lot of questions in here.
I wouldn't expect that.
But yeah.
No, also, if you have questions later and are here.
You do technically have a lot. You do technically have a few minutes. So let's.
Oh no, I'm just saying for people that are here.
Yes,
you can find us
go
at
find
the booth.
them.
Find me.
Them.
Find
Do
anybody wearing a shirt like mine. Or Manu.
Yep.
But I've got two that I think are really good. So let me ask you.
Lay it on me.
Sure.
Well, a couple people asked whether that you could apply this to consumer use cases, or is it like workforce? Like if people have, end user customers that are not workforce.
I mean, technically you could. It would be just making sure the workflow is set up on your side.
Yeah, it's kind of like a workforce use case, wherein like you are spending money on like people like this is
so there's like some like service providers that have like high risk users that sometimes they will like provide YubiKeys to, for example. So in like theory, this could work for
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have been hearing about the workforce use cases, like consumer use cases, kind of like, we can route it like directly as well.
Right.
Yep.
And then the other question is whether you can lock down the keys. So meaning like the keys, folks can only register these keys, so they can't go out and buy keys and register their own keys. Is that something that is enforceable through this?
Yes, but not necessarily through this. There are methods that you can do that with the keys, with different ways of controlling attestation. So that, yes, it is possible.
Yep.
Right. Okay, well, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Please help me to, does anyone have a question in the room? Okay, go
Any
Sorry.
questions?
Still not off the hook. Thanks, June.
No, I just simply wanted to address the scenario where you're sending, say, 2 Yubico keys or 2 YubiKeys, 3 YubiKeys to a specific user. I know in the administrator control flow, they can set the PIN all the same. In the automated flow, if I get 3 keys, am I required to have 3 PINs? Or can I share a PIN across all 3 keys? Or maybe that's a future feature.
Well, admittedly, one of the first things we recommend is that you change your PIN. So, yes, you can set that same PIN. I'm obviously not hearing this, nobody else in the room, but that's up to your user. Yes, your initial PINs will probably be randomized and different.
That answers the question.
Yes.
Right.
Random is good in this case. Any other questions?
Yep. I think there's somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Just one question. Why should I trust Yubico to create the private key for me?
All right, can you actually say that one again? Because the second the door opened, that's all I could hear.
My question is, why should I trust Yubico to create the secret key for me?
That is a wonderful question. Well, in this case, we're basically creating a one-time use key that then goes away the second you plug it in. So is there a possibility that somebody within my workflow, within Yubico, could do something with that credential? It's possible. I've not heard of that ever happening. We automate as much as possible to prevent this. We anonymize as much as possible to prevent this. But also, if you have concerns, let's see what we can do to actually make sure those concerns are taken care of.
Yep.
At the end of the day, that's what we're here for. We want to make sure everybody's safe and secure in every which way and form.
Yep. Route your concerns. We've been like using it for Okta. Like things are working fine. Route your concerns, whatever you have. Like we've thought about it. We've answered it, but kind of like we need to have more conversation like on that side. Yep.
Any other
All
questions?
right. Well, thank you. Please help me to thank Joe and Manu for
Thank
a
you.
great talk.
Thank you, guys.